So people always want to come into a program or get an opportunity and want something out of it straight away, like whether it's remuneration or or where's my next opportunity. I think it's really important to, as I said, like if you want the experience, you want to get better, you need to do things. It's not just going to be handed to you. So if you get given an opportunity and then do well, obviously more opportunities are going to come. So I don't think, people can undersell the importance of just committing to programs and doing a good job.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. My name is James Grigson. I'm joined here with Ryan Schultz. Ryan, thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, James. It's great to have a chat.
It's going to be a little bit of a different one today. Previously, we've spoken to sports sciences students, sports science graduates, strength and conditioning coaches, high performance managers, but now, and even in IT, but now we're speaking with Ryan today, a slight pivot, but still in the world of sport, still someone who has been able to come through and make a living out of his passion, essentially the same passion that we all share. So Ryan here is the current head coach of the First 15 St. Terrace Joesph Rugby Union Club, team, I should say, and is the director of performance, or should I say the rugby manager at Brothers Rugby, up the filth. And we're a pleasure to speak with him. He's made his way through the ranks as a coach. And we just got him on to really take a different look at a journey through sport. Everyone comes out of school and out of studies with that passion for sport, and Ryan's found a pathway. I first met you, mate, when you were at St. Pat's at Shorncliffe. So it's been a little while since then. So what I wanted to do is just take you a step back to your initial studies. I know you studied in business, but what was the pathway from your graduates in business and then going, I want to go back and I want to get into coaching? Talk us through that mindset there.
Yeah, I think, my journey all started probably from, as you said, my passion for sport, but mainly rugby. Like, I left school and basically wanted to be a Wallaby. Had a real crack at that, playing club footy and that sort of stuff, and tried to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I think that gave me a really good platform to then get into coaching and sports administration and that sort of stuff. So I didn't actually leave school and study. I basically got a job labouring, trained my ass off, played footy, lived the life of a 18, 19-year-old and enjoyed it as much as possible. And then as I sort of went through the years and sort of started to think about what I was going to do, I knew I wanted to sort of be in sport. So I actually started a diploma of fitness at Southbank and finished the Cert 4 side of that. And then an opportunity actually came up at my old school, St. Pat's at Shorncliffe. So I think I would have been about 20 or 21. And actually, if you know St. Pat's, the Schultz family, there's quite a fair tradition. At one point, we had 4 of my 5-member family working there. So
big family.
It's probably a message I might talk about a little bit later about your network and that sort of stuff. But because of family being at St. Pat's and I was an old boy there and that sort of stuff, this opportunity came up. And basically, my first opportunity was just a sports assistant. So I'd be packing cricket kits, pumping up footies, setting up fields, and I actually used my Cert 4 qualification to then run the gym. And that, near 10 years ago, strength and conditioning programs within schools were quite unheard of, or were probably just starting out, and especially at AIC schools. That was basically a pretty good gig to get into the industry, because I was still playing footy, working in a gym, being around sport every day. So I guess that was the start of my journey. And then over the next 10 years or so, I progressed through different positions. And then as I become a little bit more self-aware of the need to educate myself and gain qualifications, I then went into a diploma of management, business management. And then once I really got some clarity on that, coaching is what I love and is my passion and is what makes me feel good. I then went into the Masters of Sports Coaching at UQ. So I've done the grad cert part of that, and then I'm a few subjects into the Masters, but the last couple of years has been quite a hectic time with different opportunities on the professional side of things, but then also having a couple of kids as well.
That'll slow things down a bit.
It does, yeah. It's busy times.
Yeah, mate, I see your journey kind of or at least what you have just articulated there, very similar to what a lot of people do when they come out, initially around that 18 to 25 bracket. We know we love sport, but how are we going to make a living out of that? And oftentimes I remember a couple of my first gigs in sport, like you mentioned, where you're setting up fields and you're basically just filling up drink bottles. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily feel like what you want it to feel like. You're working in sport, the people you're speaking to are just as passionate as you are, but you're not necessarily doing the jobs that you thought. And you mentioned self-awareness and the education that you needed to maybe be able to do some of the jobs that you looked at and went, wow, I want to be able to do that. Talk me through that awareness process. So, you're sitting there, you're packing up cones, and then you spoke about self-awareness and you went, geez, I need to probably educate myself to be able to do these jobs that I want to do, and be a bit more hands-on with coaching.
Yeah, I think obviously getting that foot in the door and starting to get industry experience is really important. But everyone that's keen to pursue a passion and that sort of stuff, you talk to people, and in general life, it's pretty well known that you've got to have qualifications to get your foot into the door or get the next job and that sort of stuff. So probably around that 21, 22, 23 age, I was sort of thinking, well, how can I educate myself and get some qualifications while still doing what I love? So everything I ever did in terms of my education, I was still working full time. So the challenge for me was finding something that I could dedicate time to. And I actually started a Bachelor of Business when I first come out of school. I went to one lecture and I thought, I'm got to get out of this before the cut-off date so I don't have to pay for it. I then tried another Bachelor of Business in Sports Management, but same thing. I think the first subject was an introduction to law, and that wasn't that wasn't too enjoyable. So I sort of went through, trial and error, and then found a diploma in management through an online organisation that was quite broad, and it was, I was at least a little bit interested into it. And then as I got a little bit older and really started to pursue the coaching, like the sports coaching degree at UQ, like the content within it is awesome. And I couldn't wait to get home from work to study and that sort of stuff. So I think that's the really, really important thing is, you can get wound up on, I need a qualification, but what stress you're putting yourself under, and are you going to give yourself every opportunity to commit to it if it's not something that you don't enjoy and you won't get something out of? So that's sort of, I wasn't afraid to try something, and then if it wasn't working, step away from it, and then keep trying things until I sort of found something that I was really suited to and that I really enjoyed. I think during that whole time, I wasn't just focused on the education. So I think I started coaching, whether it was in the gym at St. Pat's, cricket, rugby, track and field, all that sort of stuff throughout that time. And then I tried to do as many junior representative teams and that sort of stuff as well. So education's one side of it, qualification's one side of it, but the actual doing and learning through experience is, I think, that the most important. And I'd much rather have that experience to fall back on than maybe just a qualification that's a piece of paper. So the coaching experience and repetition that I was able to get into a variety of sports was awesome.
What came first, mate? So you kind of mentioned that you were looking at different qualifications, and then you're also tasting different roles within sports and sports administration, sport coaching. What curiosity came first? I assume it's that practical knowledge. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think all I ever was probably early on pursuing was coaching and program development and implementation and that sort of stuff. And when I was young, I probably might not have known it that this is what I want to be doing. But I guess when I was doing that, I was loving it. And so for example, at St. Pat's, I went from just running the gym and pumping up footies to taking over the cricket program, taking over the rugby program. I actually coached the first 15 at St. Pat's. I think I was 21 or 22 or something like that. And I actually look back at that time and it's a real critical turning point on my philosophy and really instigated some change in my learning and in my doing through that time. And that's the thing, like you look back and go, how good was this? I'm coaching at first 15 at 22 or something like that. But the reality is I probably wasn't skilled enough to do it. And I was probably coaching like the way I had been coached and all I sort of knew at that sort of point. But as I said, now looking back at it and knowing how I performed as a coach and how I ran things, it's a really good motivator to keep trying to learn and do better.
Yeah, just from the last 10 minutes of us, I kind of get the sense that, and I've seen a lot of people, the people that I graduated with and even some of the people that I went to university with, they, you come out and you're tasting different things, but you realize that you can't go to the next level like you would have done when you went to the next, or kind of a next level in terms of administration or I guess responsibility without that qualification. And it's a weird, it seems like just from watching afar and watching a few of my mates that it's a weird journey they kind of go on where it's a understanding that practically that they're picking up those practical skills which are invaluable to your point, but then they kind of hit this threshold of they're kind of stuck in terms of the opportunities that they have because they don't have that qualification. Is that kind of what happened to you as well? Like, did you get to the point where you tasted a couple of things and you went, I can't seek other opportunities because I don't have that education? And is that what sparked you to start really looking around at different courses like the Master of Sports Coaching and things like that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like, so being at St. Pat's for an extended period of time, went through those different positions from sports assistant to a coaching administrator role to actually a sports development and performance role. You always sort of, I think it's really important, you're always looking for the next part of your journey and that sort of stuff. And sort of as you get a little bit wiser, you do, and I sort of mentioned it before, you do realise that I can put in for a job or speak to people about jobs, but all I've really got is an experience at one organisation, and I actually don't have any qualifications. So kind of looking ahead, I knew that was really, really important. And as I sort of said, like a Bachelor of Business and Sports Management might look great, but in the end, I started chipping away at things that I was passionate about. Then I was actually getting something out of that then I can apply to my everyday job and to my profession. And that's what I think is really important. Like I think it's really important for young people, and I'd be saying this to myself as well, is that you got to be kind of playing the long game as well. Like that first 15 example, like I thought, how good is this? I'm 22 coaching the first 15, you beauty. But the reality is that wasn't having any influence on where I am now. The only influence it has is in a way, my self-awareness to look back at that and go, well, I need to change and need to get better at my coaching and that sort of stuff. So I think it is really, really important for young people to have that diversity in obviously practical experience, but then also get some qualifications behind them. And it doesn't have to be, as I said, like you don't have to have this all done by a certain age or anything like that. As long as you're chipping away at something that you're passionate about, I think everything else should take care of itself. And if you're doing the right thing and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the more management roles in rugby, so you look at your current role at Brothers as a rugby manager. I just remember looking at those types of people when I was playing footy, going, "Geez, they look like they're having so much fun. Like they look like they're able to just hang around the club all day. They're around footy. They're talking to people. They seem to have good relationships with everyone." But I now know that obviously there's a hell of a lot more that goes into those roles. For people that are watching that might have had the same naive opinion that I had, that, geez, these rugby managers just get to have a heap of fun and be around footy all the time. Talk me through some of the more, I guess, technical elements or academical elements of that role where you went, you know what, I needed these qualifications or I needed these experience to be able to handle such a role right now.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth to it. They are pretty good gigs, especially if it's what you love. But like the reality too, the other side of it is that there's a lot of time that goes into the roles. It's not just a 9 to 5 sort of job. And I guess when I first started at Brothers as just the rugby manager, I had to oversee basically every part of the rugby program at Brothers. And the year before, the club had just merged, so that encountered the Little Brothers, which is under 4 to 5 program, all the way through to the first grade. So Brothers is one of the biggest clubs in the Southern Hemisphere, so there's 1,200 playing members, which means there's close to 60 teams, which means you're dealing with 60 potentially individual group of coaches in a junior program and also a senior program. I guess my education around coaching philosophies and methodology, learning styles, and that sort of stuff is hugely important because what you're going to do with under 6 is different to an under 10, is different to under 14, and then different to obviously your senior rugby program, and then also the social constraints and aspects to those roles as well. An under 14 player at Brothers is there for a different reason to then someone in under 6s and under 10s and that sort of stuff as well. So I think the coaching experience that I've spoken a lot about is one part of it, but actually having that education around how to develop a player, how to interact with a player is and learning styles and all that sort of stuff is really, really important, especially if you want to run quality programs and keep younger players engaged and ensure that there's retention. And then from the senior perspective is that you're driving performance, so you can recruit good players, you can hold on to your players that you developed, and then obviously, as we all know, the performance side of things is you're winning games, so you keep your job.
Yeah, and actually, some of the more the role that you're in now, like you mentioned, and even the first 15 coach at Terrace. How do you find you're dealing with that pressure? Like, is that the pressure of, if I don't perform, I lose my job is very different to maybe the pressure of, if I don't, work appropriately with this under 6 or under 8 kid, then their parents are going to get upset with me. Having coached under 12 kids, I know that the pressure from parents is still pretty hard as well. But what type of pressure, like from your perspective, what is it? What do you feel any different between those two stresses? The stresses of having to coach and develop a young person versus the pressures of, geez, if these boys don't perform, then my head's potentially on the chopping block. Talk us through those two dynamics and having to experience both of those.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Start of this year, actually, we changed or restructured our roles a little bit at Brothers. So I became the rugby manager performance, which basically oversees the senior program. So basically our colts through the first grade. And we brought on a rugby manager development and women's, who obviously was going to take care of all that junior space. But and then last year I took on the first 15 job at Terrace as well. So this year for me is looking like, basically like you were saying, that the seniors side of things, which is purely performance based. And there's expectation of Brothers obviously to win and have success. And then obviously coaching Terrace at a first 15 level within the GPS competition, which is very not so much cutthroat, but it's very competitive. A lot of eyes are on that competition. So in terms of that pressure, I think I don't see it at all. Like, it goes back to what I'm doing is what I love. I'm really passionate about it. Yes, it can be stressful at times, probably in terms of the management of your key stakeholders, your coaches, and the amount of people and players, and you go through the recruitment processes and all that sort of stuff. But I think the one thing that I love in terms of what helps me probably to deal with that pressure is that every weekend when you play, you get some kind of indication of where you're at. So obviously, if you're winning, you kind of know that things are going all right. But if you're winning and you're not winning well, or you're losing, or I guess it gives you a little bit of feedback on what you need to maybe looking at to fix or correct. I guess I also, as an aspiring coach, like, if you don't want to deal with the pressure of performance or winning, well, it might not be an industry or these sort of roles that, at more the performance level might not be suitable to you. So I think the self-awareness around knowing that you can't always be successful, you try to do everything to set yourself up and set your players up and your program up and your staff up. But there is always going to be hurdles and learning opportunities from them, throughout your journey, sort of thing. So going back on like the difference between that and the junior realm, I think it's really important for people to approach those programs with different philosophies and perspective. Like, it's all good for at a club level and probably at a professional level when you're dealing with men or women that are either paying their registrations to play, or have aspirations to go on to bigger and things, that they obviously want to perform, they want to do well, they want to win, they want to have a good time. But the junior side of programs, like, your approach and philosophy around that needs to be so different. And I've seen both sides of it, in terms of it done well and it done really, really poorly. And if you go into those junior programs with that performance mindset of wanting to win, I think you're not doing your players any justice, and it's also probably not really beneficial for your overall program, your club, and that sort of stuff. The reality is, I think those junior programs are all about engagement and retention. So you want to be able to provide programs that kids want to be a part of. They can have fun. They can be safe. They can learn to love the game, but then also develop their skills so they actually can play it and enjoy it. And if you're getting under 10s through to under 15s, you're keeping in the game for that long, I think you're doing the right job. And then if they do stay in the game, like, as the older they get, their own development will, I think, take care of itself in terms of they'll go where they want to go with the game. So I think it's really important.
Mate, I wish we had this conversation about 6 years ago, because there was because like I said, I coached one season of under 12s at St. Peter's Lutheran, and there was one particular game. The team wasn't historically very good, but there was one particular game where or a patch of games where we started to become a bit more competitive, and even the parents and the kids was all getting involved. And then there was moments where I was like 100% emotionally into it, like as you do, as every coach does. But I just went, I kind of had to stop myself and go, it's just under 12s, James. Just relax, mate. Like, wish I'd have heard that before.
And I actually think it, like you said, the junior side of sport is probably the most complex. Because in no ways I'm saying that kids don't want to win. Like, it's, I think, innate human nature that competitiveness and that sort of stuff is there, and kids enjoy winning and that sort of stuff. But I think it's how you get to that outcome is the really important side of it. and then you chuck in parental influence, and it's actually probably the toughest gig you can get into. And like even at a school level, it's the younger that it is, the probably not so much less focused, but the least experienced coaches are under control of them. So look, I think it's a great place to cut your teeth and learn, because the reality is if you can manage an under 11 team, under 12 team, well, you can manage men hands down. So it is a really, really good space to learn and try things, and management of people, parents, other coaches, players, it's a great place to learn and sort of find out what you're all about.
Yeah, no, it was I always look back fondly on that experience. It was a good gig. You've mentioned a lot about self-awareness. You brought it up 2 or 3 times, and I think seemingly that's been quite pivotal for you. Whether it be when you walked into those lectures in business management, you went, "Nah, this isn't for me," or the self-awareness that you needed that additional qualification to be able to go have a role in other organisations that wasn't at St. Pat's. Where did you develop this self-awareness? How did this come about? And for people that might struggle with it, what would you say to them as tips or tricks to be able to look at themselves a bit more transparently in the mirror and be able to make these decisions that are going to ultimately better their journey?
I think it probably comes down to a bit of like authenticity. So like you've kind of got to really have a good look at yourself, and in no ways I'm saying, am I the guru and this sort of stuff, but I sort of look back on my journey, and if I wasn't able to look back and reflect and learn from things I did, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And what I'm doing now, it's really, really important that same thing, you reflect on what you're doing well, what you can improve on, what aren't you good at, what are you good at, so you can continue to grow. And like the authenticity of knowing why you're doing it. Like my passion and purpose around coaching is that like whenever I do it, I love it. Like it's the connection you have with the players. You're designing training sessions or programs that you can get an outcome from. There's instant feedback, whether it's players not enjoying a session or players loving a session, wins, losses, all that sort of stuff. So having a real understanding of why you're doing it, and like through my time, especially me when I was younger, like sometimes you're doing it so you can be seen to be that guy in that role. And the reality is if that's why you're doing it, I don't think you're giving yourself every opportunity to be successful in those sort of roles. So I think an understanding of why you're doing it, and how you go by doing it in terms of what's your own philosophy and how's your approach to whether it's the game or your approach to people management and that sort of stuff is really, really important. And I guess if you don't have that ability to self-reflect, then I guess you're limiting yourself to how you continue to grow.
Is that self-reflection
that's really, really important?
Sorry, mate. Is that self-reflection done with anything? Like, are you just looking at yourself in the mirror and having these conversations, or are you almost potentially this might have changed as you've matured, but are you almost trying to find something a bit more tangible, like some sort of metrics to understand whether you're performing well or not performing well? Or is it more of just a conversational basis within yourself?
Yeah, I guess it's obviously there's a bit of internal dialogue that you go through, but also like it's really important to seek feedback as well. Like you don't have all the answers, so you've got to be open and in a way vulnerable enough to seek feedback from your players, people you're managing, people you're working with within your coaching setup and that sort of stuff. So I think if you have that thirst and desire to grow and learn, then you'll be more open to seek feedback, and that feedback might be negative, it might be positive, it might validate things that you're doing well, but if you don't have that openness and that desire to get better, then like how do you grow? So that's the biggest thing. And I think that's really hard to have when you're young. Like I've sort of mentioned a few times, you think you know it all and that sort of stuff. But I guess the earlier you can sort of get your head around it, or open yourself up to that, and actually seek feedback and seek those learning opportunities, then the quicker you're going to become better and grow, I guess.
And for people that are watching that might be just starting their studies, or they love sport and they don't really know what to do, or they've come out of a tertiary education and they're still a little bit lost, what would be your advice for those young people?
Just get your hands dirty, I reckon. I guess I've seen it firsthand through my own experience, but also through programs that I've managed. Even from a strength and conditioning side of things, for example, at Brothers, we've had some young guys come in and do their internship, and I guess the best thing about them coming in and doing it and getting their hands dirty is that they get the experience to actually coach. So they're able to put their learnings from the scientific side of things, especially within strength and conditioning, onto the field. And I guess people, I think, sometimes forget that coaching is, it's people management, it's people interaction. So you don't have that ability, then you actually can't get that information across to people. And each athlete's unique. So the way I talk to you is going to be different to the way I talk to someone else. So the way you uptake my information and how I try to get that information to you is going to be different, as I said, to someone else. So like by doing, you learn that. And I guess I've also seen probably in the last, probably from when we started out to now, is that so people always want to come into a program or get an opportunity and want something out of it straight away, like whether it's remuneration or or where's my next opportunity. I think it's really important to, as I said, like if you want the experience, you want to get better, you need to do things. It's not just going to be hand to you. So if you get given an opportunity and then do well, obviously more opportunities are going to come. So I don't think, people can undersell the importance of just committing to programs and doing a good job. It's pretty simple. If you do a good job, I think, and as I said, you have that openness and willing to learn during that experience, then further opportunities will come.
Someone was telling me a quote yesterday about, the philosophy that you've got to have when you're doing these interns and you may not necessarily feel like you're in the big time. The quote was, make where you are the big time, something along those lines, which I thought was like for someone who has had those feelings as a young coach where you didn't necessarily feel like you're adding too much value, that would have been really important for me at those times. Mate, was there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest? Anything that you're doing, anything at Brothers, anything that's going on that you wanted to get off your chest?
No, not really. Like as I said, I think it's what you're doing is great. I guess getting the message out there, whether it's from myself or some of the other great people that you've had on that can maybe assist young people, is really, really important. I guess it's up to the individual about knowing, why they're doing things, what they want to get out of it, and then hopefully being open, as I said, to learn, like listening to a podcast like this or seeking feedback. I think that gives everyone an opportunity to get where they want to be, or at least be doing something and enjoying it, I guess. So I think that's really, really important.
Ryan, you're a champ. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. For everyone that's watching, I just did an interview with Ben Brugman. He's the strength coach for the AFLW Brisbane Lions. You can watch that video here. If you want to subscribe and support us, you can subscribe here. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.